Conflict on First at 9 this Saturday, the 21st of June 2025. Tusk tussle. President calls for an immediate formal mechanism to tackle the decade-long human-elephant conflict. Prince William addresses the Sri Lankan human-elephant conflict on the latest episode of BBC Earth's docu-series. No man's land. The Middle East conflict enters a 9th consecutive day. Sri Lankans without valid visas will not be repatriated via Egypt, asserts Sri Lankan envoy. Uncovered. A series of financial irregularities at the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura uncovered by the Committee on Public Enterprises. Surgical crime. Neurosurgeon at the Sri Jayawardhanapura General Hospital arrested over financial fraud. Suspected of exorbitant prices for surgical equipment from desperate patients.
Cine Campus Open Day. May masa 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cine Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Enrolling now for the June 2025 intake and complete your degree in 2 years.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. I'm Tatyara Nayaka, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story. President Anura Dissanayake called for an immediate formal mechanism to tackle the human-elephant conflict, a pressing issue that has been on the rise for decades. Addressing a meeting yesterday, President Dissanayake instructed relevant officials to bring in necessary legislation facilitating the re-recruitment of retired officials of the Department of Wildlife. The President also issued directives to streamline ongoing joint operations by the police, other security forces and the Department of Wildlife to resolve the human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka. A discussion on resolving the human-elephant conflict was held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday under the patronage of President Anura Dissanayake. During the discussion, President Dissanayake issued directives to relevant officials to swiftly implement a formal mechanism to resolve the human-elephant conflict, which significantly impacts the rural economy along with people's lives. Attention was paid to districts most affected by the human-elephant conflict, including Anuradhapura, Puttalam, Polonnaruwa, Ampara, Hambantota, Monaragala, Kurunagala, Padula and Trincomalee. Accordingly, the President issued instructions to appoint committees comprising accountable officials from the relevant districts within the next month in view of initiating mechanisms to resolve the human-elephant conflict. The President also directed that retired officers be recruited on a contract basis to fill current vacancies in the Department of Wildlife. Officials were also instructed to implement immediate measures to assign civil security department officers to the Department of Wildlife with specific training and to enact relevant legislation to that end. In the meantime, the latest episode of The Guardian's docu-series on BBC Earth was released recently, with this episode featuring the devastating human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka. The latest episode spotlights efforts of Sri Lanka's wildlife rangers in their fight to save Sri Lanka's endangered majestic mammals. The wildlife docu-series is spearheaded by Prince William, the Prince of Wales, and the Royal Foundation's United for Wildlife programme.
In Sri Lanka, the enduring relationship between people and elephants feels more fragile than ever. With local communities growing and extending farmland, the elephant population's natural habitat is under threat, forcing them to compete with locals for both space and food. As a result, deadly clashes are becoming more common, and lives are being lost on both sides.
For Sri Lankans without valid Israeli visas who attempted to return to Sri Lanka through Egypt have been subjected to prolonged questioning by Egyptian authorities. Sri Lankan ambassador to Israel Nimal Bandara asserted that Sri Lankans without valid visas will not be repatriated via Egypt in light of the prevailing security situation and regional travel complications. Meanwhile, on the 9th day of strikes between Israel and Iran, the two countries exchanged severe bombings and missile attacks, pushing hopes of a ceasefire further away.
Iran launched an early morning missile attack on central Israel, resulting in a fire in Holon, as several Israeli attacks were reported, including on Iran's Isfahan, home to a key nuclear research center. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has said Saeed Izadi, the commander of the Palestinian Corps in Israel's Quds Force, has been assassinated in an attack on an apartment in the Iranian city of Qam. The Israeli army also claimed that it killed a second commander of the IRGC, identified as Benham Shariari, in a strike on his vehicle overnight in the capital Tehran. The head of public relations at Iran's health ministry said 9 days of attacks have killed more than 400 Iranians, including 54 women and children, and wounded 3,056 others. In Israel, 24 civilians have been killed in Iranian missile attacks, according to Israeli authorities. Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met his French, German and British counterparts, as well as European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas in Geneva yesterday. The European diplomat said the talks in Switzerland sought to test Tehran's readiness to negotiate, despite there being scant prospect of Israel ceasing its attacks soon. All sides said they would continue discussions, but Araghchi expressed grave concern over the failure of European countries to condemn Israel's attack on his country. In the recent developments, today, on the sidelines of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation gathering in Istanbul, the Iranian foreign minister stated that they have concluded that the United States has been in this aggression from the beginning, even though the US keeps denying it. In the meantime, at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, Secretary General Antonio Guterres appealed for an end to the fighting and a return to negotiations. The head of International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, told the Council that he is most concerned about the ramifications if Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant is attacked. Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Sayed Iravani, reminded the Council that while Iran has opened its nuclear facilities up to inspection, Israel has not. China and Russia continued to condemn Israel's attack on Iran, which they said led to the escalation. As anticipation around U.S. intervention in the Middle East conflict rises, U.S. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, publicly rebuked his Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, saying she was wrong to state there was no evidence Iran is building a nuclear weapon. While commenting on the matter, the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has stated Israel has already delayed the possibility for Iran to have a nuclear bomb for at least 2 or 3 years. Meanwhile, today, Pakistan announced it would recommend U.S. President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, an accolade he has said he craves for his work in helping to resolve the recent conflict between India and Pakistan. Some analysts in Pakistan said the move might persuade Trump to think again about potentially joining Israel in striking Iran's nuclear facilities. Pakistan has condemned Israel's actions as a violation of international law and a threat to regional stability. In the meantime, 4 Sri Lankans without valid Israeli visas who attempted to travel to Sri Lanka via Cairo airport using the Taba border crossing in Islet were subjected to prolonged questioning by Egyptian authorities. Accordingly, the Sri Lankan embassy in Israel has announced that it is now mandatory for Sri Lankans intending to travel from Israel to Sri Lanka via Egypt to possess a valid Israeli visa in light of the prevailing security situation and regional travel complications. Sri Lankan ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, asserted that Sri Lankans without valid visas will not be repatriated via Egypt, even in emergency situations. Sri Lankans who do not possess a valid Israeli visa or whose visas have been expired are advised to remain in Israel and wait for the reopening of Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion International Airport for their departure to Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, following formal requests from the governments of Nepal and Sri Lanka, the Indian embassy in Tehran today said that it will now extend its evacuation efforts to include citizens from both neighboring countries. So far, over 500 Indian nationals have been evacuated via special flights and border movements, with efforts continuing. The Indian embassy said the Nepalese and Sri Lankan nationals currently in Iran who wish to be evacuated should immediately contact the embassy through its dedicated Telegram channel or via emergency helpline numbers. The contact numbers shared for urgent coordination with the Indian embassy are +98 901 014 4557, +98 912 810 9115, and +98 912 810 9109. They can also contact the Sri Lanka Embassy in Iran for assistance through +98 939 205 5161, +98 991 205 7522, and +98 936 636 0260.
The Bribery Commission recently arrested a neurosurgeon and 2 other individuals for charging exorbitant prices for surgical equipment from desperate patients. The arrestees are currently being held in remand custody.
On June 17th, a neurosurgeon of the Sri Jayawardhanapura General Hospital was arrested by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. Along with the arrested neurosurgeon, a management assistant of the same hospital and an employee of a private institution run by the alleged doctor were also nabbed by the authorities. The doctor in question was arrested under suspicion of being involved in the sale of surgical equipment such as external ventricular drains and ventricular peritoneal shunt devices to patients at exorbitant prices through private parties. According to the Bribery Commission, the essential surgical equipment was not included in the hospital's annual procurement estimates. Investigations further revealed that in 2022, when the market price of an external ventricular drain was estimated to be 17,500 rupees, patients had purchased the medical equipment from external parties for 120,000 rupees and 250,000 rupees, trusting the suspected doctor's recommendation. Issuing a statement, the Bribery Commission noted that the financial loss incurred by the patients is estimated to be as high as 30 million rupees. So far, statements have been recorded from 77 patients regarding the matter. The 3 suspects were later presented before the Colombo Additional Magistrates Courts. Through subsequent legal action, the Court of Law will determine if the 3 suspects are in fact guilty of earning an unjust profit and causing losses to the hospital by not requesting the equipment from the hospital's supply division. Currently, the suspects are being held in remand custody until the 24th of June. In the meantime, the Bribery Commission requested public assistance to source more details regarding the matter. All such details and more information regarding other victims aggrieved by this incident can be provided via the hotline 1954 and through the Bribery Commission's email ciaboc_gen@ciaboc.gov.lk.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
The Committee on Public Enterprises unearthed yet another startling revelation, this instance concerning the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, where university authorities have collected increasing sums of money from the government each year while also raking in millions of rupees through inflated self-study courses. At yesterday's COPE hearing, the Acting Auditor General highlighted that inefficient allocation of resources, as in the matter at hand, hinders Sri Lanka's path towards development.
In
2024, revenue worth 1,036 million rupees was generated via self-study courses by the External Examination Unit of the university. The corresponding expenses totaled to 878 million rupees, resulting in a surplus of 157 million rupees. As mentioned by the relevant authorities, the accounting policy here is to recognize as income the total amount incurred as an expenditure. An expense of 878 million rupees was incurred for this course. According to the official accounting policy, the expense of 878 rupees must be recognized as an income in the financial statements. However, they have only recognized 491 million rupees as the revenue. The other significant matter here is that most of the 878 million rupees in question were paid out as fees to lecturers. There is no specific fee structure for lecturers. What we see here is that the lecturers share a portion of the revenue generated among themselves. Accordingly, if the revenue is high, the staff and the panel of lecturers share the excess between themselves. Another fact we observed is that while the officers in the External Examination Unit receive a monthly salary, they also receive other payments through this course. These payments go out to several officials, including the Vice-Chancellor. Ultimately, the students enrolled in these courses have to bear all these expenses. Several unnecessary costs have been added to the course fee. If we streamline the structure of the course fee, these courses can be offered to the students at lower rates. If we streamline the structure of the course fee, these courses can be offered to students at lower rates. At the moment, 6,875 million rupees earned through these external courses have been deposited in fixed deposits. At a previous COPE hearing, university authorities were directed to use these funds to fund the construction of several buildings within university premises, which were delayed. However, even that task has not been completed.
තියෙන අරමුදල් යොදාගෙන ඒ කාර්යය ඉවර කරන්න කියලා හැබැයි ඒ කාර්යයට අවසන් කළත් නැහැ.
විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිසමේ සභාපතිතුමා හරහා
We have submitted the relevant documents for approval to the Director of the National Budget. The documents were submitted via the Chairman of the University Grants Commission and the Secretary to the Ministry of Education. We still have not received a letter of approval.
විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ලැබිලා නැහැ.
ආයෝජනය කිරීමට පෙර තමයි අදාළ ඉල්ලීම ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න ඕනි කරු මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ අනුමැතියට. පැරණි වර්ෂවල ඒකේ යම් ගැටලු තත්ත්වයන් තිබුණු නිසා ඒවට අදාළ අනුමැතිය ලබා දෙන්න බැරි වෙලා තියෙනවා.
ඒ කියන්නේ ආයෝජනය කළ ඉවර වෙලානේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා අනුමැතිය දීම සම්බන්ධ ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා. අතිරික්තයක් විතර තියෙනේම මම ඇහුවේ ආපහු බාන්නගරට යවලා දිනවද නැද්ද? නැහැ. ඒක කොහොමද එම තියාගන්නේ?
එතකොට මේ අතිරික්ත මුදල් නෙවෙයි අපි බාහිර සහ අනිකුත් පාඨමාලා වලින් කලින් මුදල් ලබා ගන්නවා.
මේ කියන ස්ථාවර තැන්පතු වල
These fixed deposits keep increasing in value year by year. On the other hand, you keep receiving more money from the treasury since you keep submitting higher recurrent and capital expenditure forecasts each year. Our resources are limited. We don't have an unlimited money supply. If we allocate resources inefficiently, Sri Lanka's development will be affected.
මේ රටේ සංවර්ධනයට බලපානවානේ.
Welcome back. Now in more local news, leader of the Sarvajana Balaya parliamentarian Dilip Jayavira asserts that it is essential to counter the influence of the National People's Power within local government institutions. However, he claims that aligning with the discredited and corrupt parties rejected by the public to simply oust the NPP is not an option.
The Sarvajana Sabha of the Lunugambehera Pradeshya Sabha was set up today under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya's leader Dilip Jayavira at an event in Udamattala today.
Simply taking an oath of office as a local government councillor is outdated. Our aim is to implement this new concept of Sarvajana Sabhas, which will be a platform through which we could outwork chairmen of Pradeshya Sabhas and mayors of municipal councils. Our responsibility is to set up the necessary infrastructure such that it is capable of providing you a good service. That is why we refuse to ally ourselves with the SJB, the SLPP and the People's Alliance or the UNP. Social media propagandists of the SLPP allege that we supported the NPP indirectly. After all local government bodies are set up and when the dust settles, the people will be able to realize the results of our actions. We must definitely defeat the NPP and the JVP, parties guided by a beggar's attitude. Their rise to power is a great misfortune to the country. However, we can't in good conscience support the corrupt politicians voted out by the people when they vested the mandate of power with the NPP. The cheap brand of politics fueled by nepotism, which you saw yourselves here in Hambantota, must be completely eradicated. The word we hate the most is deal. If we really wanted to, we could have done huge deals. We still could. However, there is no sin worse than forming a deal that is not beneficial to the public. We are all believers of the Buddhist philosophy. We see how karmic retribution affects those who acted contrary to the teachings of the Buddha. In the lead up to the election, many distributed goods, including asbestos sheets. That in itself is not enough without a proper agenda. However, until we secure the political power needed, we will do at least the bare minimum the public requires through these Sarvajana Sabhas.
Political discourse today was dominated by secret ballots and the tug of war for local government councils. Here's a look at the latest on that front.
We claimed power in several local government bodies. Altogether, we have a bonus now and it far exceeds our expectations. Now we are continuing to move forward successfully. Even though some individuals seek temporary satisfaction by forming fragile coalitions in furtherance of their lust for power, it will be difficult for them to continue their journey because their only goal is to claim power. At the end of the day, the public will be aggrieved. The former mayor of the Gaul Municipal Council, who is a member of the SLPP, voted in favour of the National People's Power. Senthil Tondaman from the Nureli district also joined the ruling party. The councillors of Rishad Badiuddin's party joined the ruling party in Kurunagala and Anuradhapura districts and cast their votes in NPP's favour. The ruling party had discussions in Batiklu seeking Pillayan's support. The government has broken all deals it made with the citizens and made deals with other individuals. The current opposition, which has no self-respect, is in complete disarray. The opposition says that we are ruling in an anti-democratic manner. When they are attempting to establish power in Pradesh Sabhas, they collect councillors like chess pieces. We have not established power in that manner. However, if they do it that way, we will follow suit. President Anudisa Nayaka, who said that the secret ballot is the model of fraud, hides behind secret ballots now. The JVP, who warned the public to not vote for thieves, now has to establish power with thieves after the election. On certain occasions, people in political movements may be involved in various corrupt practices. However, they will not be able to continue their journey with us. It is clear that our journey is distinct, and those who follow our method, who are able to go forward with us, can change this corrupt political culture. If that change is inspired, the whole political culture can be changed. It is definitely possible.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya critiqued Sri Lanka's education system at an event in Colombo, calling it unnecessarily competitive and too exam-focused. Speaking at the same event, Country Director of the Asian Development Bank, Takafumi Kadono, asserted that national innovation systems are a crucial tool to transform Sri Lanka's economy. Innovation for Economic Transformation, a program organized by the Asian Development Bank, was held recently in Colombo. The Asian Development Bank's country director Takafumi Kadono and Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya were among the distinguished guests at the event.
Sri Lanka, as you know, is at a transformative moment in its history. ADB continues to be a partner to the government in this endeavor and to explore creative, non-traditional ways to unlock the country's potential to move forward in this new economic journey. Our own strategy, ADB Strategy 2030, emphasizes a country-focused approach in supporting its developing member countries like Sri Lanka, customizing our support through what we call the country partnership strategy. This involves promoting the use of innovative technologies and delivering integrated solutions by combining expertise across sectors and themes and public and private partnerships. In line with these priorities, ADB supported the establishment of 3 technology faculties, an engineering faculty, and a medical faculty across 5 universities in Sri Lanka. The innovations that are taking place in these faculties are a testament to the capacities within universities to contribute to the economy and society through research and development. Innovation, as you know, is a major factor that contributes to economic transformation through productivity gains and shifting resources to produce more complex goods in productive sectors and deliver high-quality services. For developing countries such as Sri Lanka, building national innovation systems to support purposeful innovation is a key factor in transforming their economies.
The government is committed to setting the policy direction, partnering effectively with the private sector, and promoting innovation by active involvement throughout the innovation chain. For decades, we have underinvested in higher education and research. Our gross expenditure on research and development is just 0.1% of GDP. Most of our public spending on education has gone to general education, and that's fair enough. Yet, despite this heavy investment and attention on general education, we have created a highly unequal educational landscape where there are a few schools of high quality and many schools that offer a low quality teaching learning experience. Not only does this mean that our system has become unnecessarily competitive and too exam focused, it has also meant that our educational opportunities have become limited. I believe that this situation has been created because for years our policy has been based on a series of unexamined assumptions, which I think we need to really re-examine. Some of our universities are already stepping up. I recently visited the ADB-funded Faculty of Engineering at Sri Jayawardhanapura. It's impressive, but a building in and of itself is not the end. That's only the beginning. Innovation is not just about commercialization and getting your patent. It has to contribute in some way to reducing inequality, to our climate risk problems, and to finding sustainable solutions, to ethical leadership through public engagement.
Deputy Minister of Digital Economy Eranga Weeraratne reaffirmed the government's commitment to empowering Sri Lanka's youth, pledging to establish necessary platforms, programs and policy frameworks to help young innovators bring their ideas to scale. Meanwhile, Country Director of the Asian Development Bank Takafumi Kadono announced efforts to mobilize patient capital for startup investments in Sri Lanka, an initiative aimed at nurturing an ecosystem where young entrepreneurs can flourish.
The 6th New Generation Sri Lanka Youth Top 40 Awards, jointly organised by New Generation Sri Lanka and Women in Management, was recently held in Colombo. The event celebrated 40 exceptional young individuals making a difference in various fields, including women leaders. At the event, Anudhi Gunasekara, a Sri Lankan model, activist and beauty queen who represented the nation at the 72nd Miss World pageant in Hyderabad, India, was recognized as the Inspirational Youth of the Year.
At the 72nd Miss World Festival 20, the Youth TV Presenter of the Year, TV Derana, EA Aditya Edirisinghe.
Meanwhile, Ada Derana 24 news anchor Aditya Edirisinghe was honored with the title of Youth TV Presenter of the Year.
Their leadership in student and civic organizations.
Business editor of The Morning, Madhu Shathapalakumar, was also honored to be named the Youth Journalist of the Year.
Former IMF fellow and contributor.
Meanwhile, Sonali Silva was awarded for her outstanding contribution to the community. These awards were a collaborative partnership between the Youth Chapter of Women in Management and the National Youth Services Council, aiming to spotlight and support the next generation of Sri Lankan leadership.
Instead of investing in youth proactively, we continue to complain or stay silent. Let us not repeat the mistake we made with women entrepreneurs, waiting until international organizations or white skin pointed out the lack of financial access was holding them back. Let us not wait until outsiders again tell us that youth unemployment, brain drain, and lost potential are a result of our failures to open doors to finance, mentorship, and inclusion.
If we are to build a modern Sri Lanka, just and globally relevant, then we must empower our youth with all the energy and the commitment that we can provide you with the support from the whole nation. It is now our responsibility as a government to keep pace with you, to create the platforms, policies and partnerships that allow your ideas to scale, your talent to grow and your impact to multiply. We are in the process of creating a national funding mechanism, a matching grant to support innovation, R&D and digital startups. We are also launching a national program to build AI literacy and capacity starting from school level, and we want Sri Lanka to be ready. We are building a Sri Lanka that is not only digitally enabled but digitally ambitious, and the heartbeat of that ambition is our youth.
Today there were many already tech entrepreneurs and startups who have been recognized. So, of course, Asian Development Bank aspire to support the innovation ecosystem, which is a space where the youth can thrive. The reason why we want to support the innovation ecosystem is because, of course, innovation is the engine of growth. And in order for Sri Lanka to extricate itself out of the economic crisis and position itself on a robust, sustainable, and inclusive growth trajectory, something has to change. And that change comes from the youth. Sri Lanka is aging rapidly, probably the fastest aging country in South Asia. Female workforce participation is shockingly low, and youth unemployment is staggeringly high. So our job in this context is to work with the government and a wide range of stakeholders to create an environment where the youth can shine. And to this end, we are considering ways to attract patient capital to invest in startups in Sri Lanka. We primarily work with the government, but also with the private sector to create that ecosystem where the youth can thrive.
Welcome back. Taking you to your business news, the Sri Lanka Tourism Board opened around 3,000 acres of their highly valued land plots in tourism hotspots across the island to local and foreign investors in a bid to promote tourism as well as accumulate investments. The initiative was announced yesterday, and more information on the procedure will be available on the SLTDA website and local newspapers.
The Ministry of Tourism has decided to call on local and international investors to invest in several valuable properties owned by the Tourism Development Authority in Sri Lanka's tourist hotspots.
Bentota National Holiday Resort Zone, we have about 24 acres, and Kuchweli Beach Resort Zone, 74 acres, and Kalpitia Island Resort Zone, 2 large islands, Batalangundua, 291 acres, and Uchamune, 1,095 acres. Pasikuda National Holiday Resort, again 6.5 acres. Deddua Lake Resort area, 1,713 acres. Mulaneyaya Pidurangala area, 19 acres land plot, and Razul Totan and Trincomalee approximately 40 acres of land plots, and Allah's Garden, Trincomalee approximately 4 acres. And these are at the moment clearly available. And there are some other land plots acquisition processes going on. So once all these things clear, we will publish them as well. In our SLTD website also, the information of these land plots are available.
We are actually publishing a paper advertisement by next week in local papers. Plus we have been promoting it internationally through our IR unit for anybody who's been having expression of interest on the world-class tourism ventures, who wants to invest in Sri Lanka, plus developing Sri Lankan tourism resource to a global level, who has aspects of sustainability, aspect of the higher level of investment, plus various different tourist attractions, will be evaluated on the basis of their merit on those aspects, and then to be disperse the lands with a stipulated development plan, with a time plan as well, because what we see is in earlier days, we sometimes disperse land which was not been developed for last 10 or 15 years of time. So this is not a one-time initiative, this will be an ongoing initiative. So there will be a kind of a stabilized committee who's been evaluating the particular proposals.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.